Hello and welcome to Below the Surface. I'm your host, Darshna Kamani, and here is my co-host, Stephanie Cavigliano. Hi,
Hello.
Stephanie.
Hi, Darshna. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing quite well myself. Thanks for asking.
Good to hear. So we have a packed show today, so unfortunately no talk of desserts or what we want to eat or ice cream as we're both hot. But before we do go ahead, to all those watching, please do say hello in the comment section or feel free to ask questions to our experts and we will ensure they get answered throughout the show. Now, back to the show today, we will be focusing on how MSPs can support their customers when it comes to security, and we will delve into a recent report that looks at the evolving MSP landscape.
We have a wonderful panel of guests today, and they're a lot of fun too. So let me go ahead and introduce them. Today we have Jason Howells, our Vice President for MSP International Sales. We've got Neal Bradbury, Vice President of MSP Strategic Partnerships, and Mike Hanauer, Vice President, SKOUT Managed XDR Sales. Welcome all.
Hello, ladies.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're located. Thanks for having us.
Agreed. Great to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. But before we get into the topic, it would be great if you can tell us a bit about yourself and your role. Jason, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, thanks, Darshna. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Jason Howells. As you said, I'm the VP of MSP International Sales at Barracuda MSP, and it's my job to help and support managed service providers with their security journeys to do the best we can to support and protect themselves and their customers against cybercrime.
Thank you. Neal?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Neal Bradbury, VP of MSP Strategic Partnerships here at Barracuda MSP. Working with the ecosystem for partnerships to help our MSPs better secure themselves and their customers. And also, I am responsible for our wonderful partner success team here at Barracuda MSP that partners with Jason's team and our North American sales teams to make sure that our partners are successful in what they do.
Awesome, thank you. And last but definitely not least, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Hanauer. I'm the Vice President of SKOUT Managed XDR Sales as of about a week ago. So very excited to be here. I've spent about 10 years working with MSPs in both the security and business continuity space. So I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, welcome to the team.
Thank you.
We're thrilled to have you. All right, guys, so let's start with the recently launched report. And this report looks at the evolving landscape of MSP business. So Jason, can you give us a high-level review of the report and some of its key findings?
Yeah, let me kick that off, Stephanie. Thanks. And let me talk to the report itself, I guess, to start with. So the report is part of our annual Global MSP Day. And this year was the fourth year of highlighting and celebrating the great work that MSPs do for small and medium-sized businesses around the world. Initiative that we, as I say, started 4 years ago. And every year we update the report, which takes a look at the landscape. This year we had over 400 MSPs across EMEA, APAC, and the Americas respond. And yeah, we've seen some interesting results. You know, there's some things moving around. A large part of that, I guess, driven by the global pandemic for sure. But a few things that it's really highlighted are that there is definitely no lack of opportunity for MSPs right now, which is awesome. And then there is one real clear message that is coming through as well, and that is that security services have risen to the very top of the agenda right now. So it's clear that businesses of all sizes are reaching out and turning to managed service providers for help to stay safe and fight cybercrime. With the number one reason that businesses turn to MSP for help in the 2020 report being simply that the complexity of IT meant that they needed help from managed service providers, to this year with the number one driver being security concerns. So yeah, some really interesting stuff moving around, and I'm sure we'll get into some more of that detail as we go. But yeah, the two main things that you can immediately pick out from it there I've highlighted.
Thanks for that, Jason. Neal, anything else to highlight from this report?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great report. If you haven't downloaded a copy and you're watching this today, feel free to point your favorite browser to, the Barracuda properties and you can download it. But from my perspective, I was excited to see the optimism, after coming out of 2020, once in a lifetime pandemic, there was actually a lot of optimism in the report, and MSPs are growing outside of maybe certain verticals, depending who you talk to, that, get hit a little harder than others. You're still seeing MSPs not only generate more than half their revenue from managed services, but that is actually increasing year over year. And I know we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the next few minutes here. And to Jason's point, the moving pieces, and this is what's interesting, is how did the pandemic kind of say, what is the top 5 things that MSPs are worrying about? Remote workforce, for example, just popped up out of nowhere. That was never on a lot of our last 4 years of reports, whereas this year it showed up. So it's interesting to see the trends changing, and the 3 of us, or actually the 5 of us, will address that today. So,
Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, so it's actually very interesting. In the beginning of the year, SKOUT ran a very similar report, and a lot of the findings were just spot on. I mean, top 3 services, backup email and endpoint. Top market driver is security. Pricing is the top challenge that they're facing. But what I thought was really interesting was from January, and we had about 500 respondents too. The demographics were very similar, and the positive outlook, the market opportunity that MSPs are seeing, jumped by about 15%, which was really great to see. 6 months in, we're starting to see things open back up. So it was interesting to see a lot of very similar responses, but the outlook that MSPs see and the opportunity that they see has increased significantly over the last 6 months.
Awesome. So, it sounds like a really interesting report. Let's delve into some of the areas that we've discovered, and you've all mentioned the pandemic. So remote work has driven up the demand for security services. How will this change as we return to normal, as we do and when we do? Security and cloud migration were shown as big business drivers for MSPs. Is this due to the pandemic, or is it an ongoing trend? Neal, do you have some thoughts on that?
I do. That was like 7 questions, Darshana. So let me take them in the order that you maybe you asked them, but maybe not. So one of the interesting stats in this report, which was cool, was, and it's staggering if you think about it, digital transformation has been something everyone's spoken about for years and years and years. It's estimated that 7 years of digital transformation was done in 4 months in 2020. That's insane. And so the way I look at it is, a lot of these small businesses that the MSPs support kept putting off projects. And most small businesses weren't really used to their employees working remote. So now everyone goes remote, and they still need to function. They still need to be in business. And so that pushed a lot of these migration to the cloud type projects that maybe they had been putting off for years and years because the server in the office was fine. But you go remote, having everyone get access to that server in the office was a challenge. And so it was an opportunity for MSPs for them to take advantage. They essentially needed to kind of change what their priorities were on a daily basis, from more staffing, maybe some of their NOC or their help desk, into more project work to kind of help these businesses move forward. I also think the pandemic, and you mentioned it, was, remote workforce. I don't know if there is return to normal or if it's just the new normal, and hybrid is where we're going to be. Even if I look at our own company and other vendors and partners to MSPs, I think there's going to be this hybrid environment that we all live in. And so, and I'd love to get Jason and Mike's answer to this, but security concerns, it flopped. You used to reach out to an MSP a few years ago. My computer's slow. I need help. I want to, do this project. And now it's all about security, right? And not to mention different breaches or different issues that have happened over the last year, but it's becoming more and more common, and businesses are worried. Part of us on Barracuda is, Mike's here from SKOUT. We purchased SKOUT. We purchased FIDE. A lot of these different things have come up in the last year, and Barracuda is responding in kind. So it's exciting.
Mike, anything to add there?
Yeah, so I mean, I think these trends were happening, and the pandemic just sort of accelerated everything. And I think what a lot of people forget, a lot of small businesses forget, these MSPs were supporting 50, 100, 200 small businesses while at the same time trying to migrate themselves. So there was a lot of learning as you go. And I mean, SKOUT, for example, we had to move an entire SOC operations remaining compliant to a fully remote workforce. So it's I don't think necessarily that these are new trends. I think that the pandemic just simply accelerated the trends that were already happening, specifically the move to the cloud for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's Jason, anything else?
Yeah, well, I mean, they kind of, the guys have kind of said it there, right? I mean, that stat that Neal's thrown out there, 7 years worth in 4 months, right? It's just, and it's outstanding, right? I mean, it's great. It's great that people are adopting digital transformation. I think, longer term, it will be awesome for everybody, but there was just that kind of panic to try and cover so much ground in such a short space of time to make sure that people could work and businesses could continue. And the secondary thought there, which has now followed on from that, is, are people safe? Are they secure? Is my company data safe? Whether that be the MSP, to Mike's point, or whether it be to their customers. And there is certainly a need to make sure that all of those things are covered. And I guess the security side of it, I think MSPs, there has been huge opportunity throughout this for MSPs to thrive and do well and continue to drive their businesses forward. And, and if they can have security in mind, the report shows that, that's what the concerns are about. That's what people are worried about. And with digital transformation, that's always going to be, one of the biggest questions is my data safe? Is my information safe? Are my employees safe? While we're making this transition, are things safe? Are we safe? That's been one of the biggest reasons why people have not adopted and moved in the digital transformation situation. So, I think it's more relevant now than ever before that security is top of mind, and MSPs have the opportunity to go and do something about it. And one thing is for sure, I've said it before and I'll say it again, if managed service providers aren't speaking to their customers about security, then the chances are somebody else will be. So, yeah, I think it's hugely important that it's at the top of the agenda. It's a conversation that's tabled. Everybody needs to understand where they are, what they need, what they want, and an MSP needs to sit and listen and advise and guide people through that process. And who knows what is the new, what is it going to look like? What is it going to be, in this as we all kind of hopefully come out of this global pandemic that we've been in? What is the new norm going to look like? Who knows? But I think MSPs have a really important part to play in it for sure.
So managed services are still seen as a huge opportunity for MSPs. The demand is only increasing given some of the drivers that you gentlemen have been mentioning. So Jason, how can MSPs ensure that they stand out from their competition?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something for us to talk about for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things for us to address here and think about, Stephanie. And the first is that the report shows that there is a huge opportunity for MSPs right now. I just mentioned that, and what's driving the need and the opportunity in the managed services space is that there is a lack of expertise out in the marketplace. So people are turning to MSPs to try and get some help. I think 85% of those that responded to us saw that there's an opportunity for them to grow their businesses through 2021. So, and earlier it was mentioned, Neal talked to there being a very hybrid world that we live in right now. And yeah, I totally agree with that as well, right? So, I think it was 56% of those responded highlighted that they actually believe that managed services is the best opportunity for them to grow their business in the coming year. So, in the hybrid world that we live in, and people are doing break fix and, reselling and all the rest of the things, actually, being able to offer managed services to their customers and the uptake of those services, MSPs see as that's the biggest opportunity for them to grow their businesses. So, that's awesome. And the second thing to think about, I guess, is the opportunity itself. How do you take advantage of it? and maximize your opportunity, how do you differentiate yourself as an MSP? Well, the report shows again that security and cybercrime is a huge driver towards MSPs. There's a huge shortfall, as I mentioned, in the talent. The stats around that there's 4 million open opportunities for people to be working in and around cybersecurity right now. So it's difficult to find good talent and to keep good talent. There is certainly an opportunity for an MSP to build out services, to build the talent into their businesses, and then become kind of trusted advisor around security, and to help businesses of all sizes actually, but in particular kind of small to medium businesses, to make sure that they stay safe in their business and they can concentrate on whatever their business may be. And again, just coming back to the report, we showed it earlier. The top 5 security-based services that are being focused on are at the top of the agenda at the moment. That kind of falls into endpoint security, email and networking security, server security, and endpoint monitoring. They all made the top 5 in 2021, which is one more than the report showed in 2020, and actually 4 more than the report showed in 2019. So, it's proof that security is absolutely top of mind. Security is a need and an ask for small to medium business right across the globe. And, that is the real true opportunity, I believe, for MSPs to be able to differentiate themselves, to be able to provide their customers what they really need and what they're asking for right now, and for them to be able to grow their own businesses going forward.
Excellent. Thank you. So, Mike, any thoughts on this? What can MSPs do to stand out from the competition?
Yeah, so I am a firm believer that every single MSP out there is going to need to become a security first company. Security should be what you lead with when talking to new clients. And in addition to that, when you're talking to your existing clients, maybe you've been in there 10 years, the pandemic gave an opportunity for everybody to reset and really understand the network, really understand what these businesses care about. Another thing that I've seen a huge trend toward over the last 18 months or so is augmented IT. So not necessarily going in and replacing or becoming the entire IT staff, but going in as a specialist for a specialized area, whether that be backup, security, managed firewall, whatever it may be. But give them an opportunity to keep their staff that they have, and augment some of the talent that they don't want to necessarily hire immediately.
Yeah, Mike, you probably see that more on the SKOUT side too, with that augmented, because you are an outsourced SOC, right? And so a lot of businesses, due to the cost and the knowledge gap, right? They're going to leverage someone like a SKOUT to build that cyber as a service with that SOC, right? So totally, I think that augmented way on security is the way to go. I think it also brings up the point that a lot of these MSPs, to differentiate, we've all said it and we're all using different words, is they need to become security centric. And for us, I think that means there's a security lens in everything that they do. The entire, back in the day, Mike, you and I have worked, Jason, we've all worked in the MSP industry for a while. We call it the MSP stack. It's typically anywhere from 10 to 15 products that someone will put together. They'll sell it per user or per device, and they'll basically charge monthly, right? I mean, the MSP model. And when everything happened in the last 18 months, everyone really needed to look at the solutions they were using. How did they glue together? How did they integrate? And what was that kind of security lens? And some people I know dropped certain solutions. Some people I know added different solutions when they kind of took that angle and looking at their stack. If there's anything that I can tell an MSP on how to differentiate themselves, is practice what you preach. The last thing that you want to be is in the news or in your local chamber and you had an issue because you've been preaching security to your customers, helping them, and then you didn't follow kind of some of your own wisdom. And so practice what you preach and kind of look at stuff from a security lens and be security centric. I'll also say I don't think that every MSP needs to build a SOC. I don't actually think that's the value add that a lot of MSPs add. I think partnering with someone, and yes, I know, Neal, you just bought SKOUT. No, but I'm serious. There's a certain specialty, there's a certain skill set that goes with that. And a lot of MSPs, be first or be different. They're very good in a specific vertical. They're very good in specific software applications. They're very good in implementing certain things for accountants or hospitality, don't lose that, but you do need to add that security to your MSP stack. And there's a lot of vendors out there that can help you kind of build that up so you can go to market and kind of have that security-centric mindset.
Yeah, so let me just add to that as well, Neil. So yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, we talk about people being on their security journey, right? And I think that fits in with being security centric, right? I think no matter where they are on that journey, whether they're at the very start of it and they know they need to do something and they need to jump in somewhere and they're not sure how to do it, or whether they're some way into it and they're starting to build some kind of services, but they feel like they need to add additional layers, or whether they're quite seriously into it. And again, it's just enhancing it with a few more bits and pieces. The right kind of partnerships, the right partnering with third parties, will allow them to achieve whatever they need to achieve for their customers. So yeah, that whole kind of security journey and where people are, if you choose the right partners to work with, then you can actually fulfill all the needs of your customers. So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I always recommend is to pick a security framework. We see a lot of new compliances and things of the sort based around NIST, but pick a standard and work towards it and start on that journey and develop a plan and protect yourself in-house first. Like Neal said, you need to practice what you preach, eat your own dog food, whatever your metaphor you like to use is, but you need to start by protecting yourself.
Awesome. So we've discussed security quite a bit, and in the report, email security was cited as a top performing service and area of focus for MSPs. Why is email security becoming such a priority for MSPs, Neal? So
I'm glad you mentioned that we're bringing it up because it was in the report, not because we're Barracuda Networks and we've been doing this for 2 decades.
Of course not.
Of course not, right? But it's true. So when I look at it, email security is a top performing service because that's where the threat landscape and that's the threat vector that is getting attacked the most, right? If you look at, I was reading a couple of stats, we've done, the 13 types of email attacks. Phishing itself is responsible for 93% of email breaches. And so as an MSP, if you look at how is a small business that just went remote, how is a small business that's now going to be in this hybrid landscape, protect themselves, email security and endpoint security are kind of those two that you need to start with to kind of at least get a baseline to protect your users. Email security is also, and I won't price value, it's not a ridiculously expensive thing for an MSP to offer. It can be built into the MSP stack. It can be offered to all of the users at a reasonable price point. And when you look at an MSP and the different things they put as part of their stack, email security is one of those things that can very easily be bundled in and provides a ton of value immediately to the MSP for protecting users, but also to the end users to be able to tune it. What do they want to read? What don't they? And you can make sure they're not going to get viruses or malware, et cetera. So I think there's a price value thing there for an MSP, and I also think it's the biggest threat vector that needs to be protected. When I look at kind of that security, layers of security, Jason brought up layers of security that need to be implemented.
Yeah, totally agree with you, Neal. I've got a couple of scary big stats here to kind of add into the mix. So yeah, you're right. The biggest threat vector, 91%, I think, is the stat that I saw of cyber attacks start with an email. So yeah, absolutely spot on there as to a good reason why an MSP should start to look at email and helping their customers to stay safe there. And as our discussions of digital transformation appeared earlier, another scary stat was 98% of organizations with Office 365 harbor malicious emails inside their inbox. So, again, a big stat, big scary stat, but a very good reason why email is absolutely at the top of the list and a reason why people should focus there. And the ebook, it's awesome. Go to barracuda.com. We spent the time there to build that out. There is an ebook which highlights 13 email threat types. And that goes from, the less sophisticated to the more complex. So, less sophisticated, less complex like spam and malware, URL phishing, explains all of those, to the more complex like brand impersonation and business email compromise and account takeover. And that again then leads into what you just said about the layers, right? Incredibly important to make sure that with the more sophisticated attacks that are out in the market today, and guess what? They're only going to get more and more sophisticated, right? It's only going to go one way. So there's a need to layer your approach with email gateway, with AI-powered fraud protection, automated incident response, et cetera, et cetera. So, for MSPs to understand those different layers and then be able to kind of work with their customers to help their customers to understand them will mean that it's a good opportunity for them to make sure that their customers are in good shape.
I think that's a great quiz, Jason, for Mike and his team. Now that he's joined Barracuda, like how fast can they memorize the 13? Right? It's kind of like we'll give them a month to get on board, but then it's like, all right, go. What are the 13? Right? Because you didn't list all 13 either, right? He's got.
No.
I mean, you should have to in a couple of weeks.
Done. Just let me know when the test is.
We'll do.
Yeah, we'll have to do the next LinkedIn Live is a quiz on the 13th threat.
Oh, we'll see how I do. I think there's one other thing that I want to add here, and it's around education on how hackers hack and how the bad guys work. When most people think of a hacker, they're thinking of this extremely smart person that's using like a matrix style computer with ones and zeros and specifically targeting people. But that's not actually how it works. They're using fairly rudimentary tools, and they're blasting out emails to thousands of people with the expectation that somebody is going to click on it. And with that being the most common way that the bad actors work, email protection is a simple way to protect yourself from 99% of attacks.
Yeah, really good stuff here, guys. So you're leading right into my next question, which is, Jason, you're talking about how these email threats have been evolving and continue to evolve. No doubt, email protection has to evolve with it, with the threats. And so I'm wondering, and Neal, maybe you can answer this. Have you seen a transition in the way email security solutions are being implemented as a result of how email protection is evolving?
Yeah, sure. And I'd love to get Jason's, Mike opinion on this after I go. And for me, I think the biggest difference is that it's now about layers. Everyone thinks about layers of security, and you need the endpoint, you need the network, you need email. But even within email security itself, there's many different layers that can or should be deployed. If I go back 10 years, it was all about the gateway, right? What's coming in, what's going out. But Jason just had a scary stat where over 90% of Office 365, might have been 98, but hopefully Mike's not going to quiz me now, have a latent, a bad email in their Office 365 box. And really to find that, a gateway solution is not going to do it. You need something that's API based, that's scanning those emails, looking for those threats, right? And so now we got a gateway, now we have API based. And at the same time, if you look at a lot of what we do internally, we also include data protection and backup as another layer of security or protection, right? It comes up in the MSP Day report as one of the top things that MSP sell. It's literally number one, business continuity DR. But backing up that email is that last step to make sure, you have a copy of it, put your layers of security in, and we consider kind of backup as also part of that. And so we've even seen as more and more businesses have gone cloud or Office 365, that, the backup, the cloud-to-cloud backup is actually also increased, right, as a result. And so for me, I guess I go back to its layers, Stephanie.
Yeah, let me add to that as well. So Neal, yeah, you're right. 98%, by the way. You almost passed, not quite, but
I'll get it next time.
Keep going. You'll get there. Yeah. So, and that is a really interesting stat. So, and you're right. There was the days gone by where you had a fairly fixed four walls that you just needed to put some kind of gateway against, and everybody was good, right? And now, and again, going back to our earlier questions and the situation in the world right now, that's not possible, right? So. You do have to have a multi-layered approach. MSPs need to be aware of all of those different layers and all the different threats that are out there so that they can actually educate their customers. I mean, the biggest challenge that MSPs normally have is making sure that they're going to get paid every month, right? There's a monthly billing model here, and they have to go and justify their existence, and they have to make sure that they get their bills paid. So to be able to talk to it correctly, to be able to show value, to be able to help their customers understand why they need to work with them to make these investments is really important. And the follow-on from that as well is and the addition to it is the user. Mike kind of touched on it there a second ago, educating the actual user themselves. I don't have a big scary stat for it, but I've got no doubt there will be many scary stats for how many breaches are caused by a human being. Probably the majority, right? So it's for us to be able to also have an additional layer of making sure that businesses are helping employees to understand exactly what is good, what is bad, what does good look like, and trying to help to make sure that they limit the temptation to click on things or do things that they shouldn't do is hugely important too. So yeah, again, another layer to it, but hugely important.
Yeah, and I think if we look at how email security has evolved over the years, it started as just a filter. So the assumption was, if this got through the filter, then it's good. And for us to learn about those things, you hear about zero-day attacks all the time. Somebody had to have clicked on it and learned that it was bad for it to be stopped by the filter the next time. But now we've evolved into things like computer vision and AI and educating end customers on why they should not have clicked on this. Here's an example, and all the training that's out there and everything. So yeah, I think email security has evolved pretty tremendously over the last 10 years.
I was going to say as well, Neil, that sorry, Neil. I was going to say to Mike there that there is the opportunity, and there are many tools out there for people to be able to try and show how that 98% statistic is actually real, right? There's nothing better than an MSP actually being able to run a tool that will actually highlight where those vulnerabilities are, where those threats are, and how they're actually existing in their networks today, and then helping them to work through how you remediate it, right? So there's things that can be done, but essentially what this is visibility, right? There are tools that can be used. There are ways that MSPs can work with their customers to show them today, without them making the commitment, without them spending the money, where they are vulnerable. That visibility, I think, is a really, really important thing for us kind of all to think about as we move forward.
Yeah, and one more thing to add there. One of the things that we lost over the last 18 months was the fact that with everybody in the office, you got a bunch of people sitting in cubicles, a bunch of people get the email and they can look over the cube. Did you get that? I'm not clicking on that. And none of that's happening.
Yeah, very valid
to
point.
their MSP and ask if it's bad. Right? Should I click on this or not?
Open up a help desk ticket.
Right.
All right, guys. So we did have a user question come in, and the question is, can you let me know the email security, how our email security technology compares to other OEMs? Anybody have an answer for that?
I'll take a shot at it, Stephanie, and then I can get some backup. Barracuda has a long, pedigree in email security. We've been doing it, I said earlier, almost 2 decades. And so for us, we see billions. Billions is the number of emails that are coming through. And so that allows us to filter through them, see what's coming in, and really improve our efficacy every single day, as we go through as part of the huge network that we've built to kind of make sure that we're blocking the things that need to be blocked and allowing the things that go through. So I guess if I had to pick that, it would be, our investment in our advanced threat detection because of all the emails we're seeing, and just continually training the tools that we've built to improve efficacy.
Yeah, I guess that's the advantage of Barracuda doing what it's done for 20 plus years, right? And having the 200,000 plus customers we've got across the globe, it allows us to have access and visibility into what's happening out there, and then for us to be able to kind of utilize that information and share it to make sure that we are keeping as many people safe as we possibly can. So, yeah.
And I'm new to Barracuda email protection, so I'm going to stay out of this.
You believe in email protection, right, Mike?
I gotta focus on the 13 most common threats. I'll worry about competitive intelligence after.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. So, we've talked about security quite a bit and how complex it can be. So naturally, a trigger for SMBs to go to an MSP is a lack of security skills in-house. So what can MSPs do to ensure they provide and support customers bridge that gap? Mike, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, Jason mentioned it earlier. There's 4 million open cybersecurity jobs globally right now. What that means is that even if you had the money to hire these people, the chances are the talent's not available. So the other side of that is that there's a lack of people that can communicate cyber risk. And we've talked about this a bit already, but the 3 most common problems that MSPs are trying to solve when it comes to security is phishing, ransomware, and compliance. And they're looking for something that's high value, low cost, and easy to use. So with SMBs turning to MSPs, and MSPs not having the ability to hire the talent either, that's why we're seeing such a huge movement towards outsourcing that practice.
I didn't realize it was simply that 3. But I wrote that down, Mike. Actually, I'm actually taking notes on our own podcast.
We're coming back to a quiz.
Ransomware and compliance. Yeah. It's so simple. Like I can even have that conversation. Yeah. Like that's pretty good.
It's the 3 big things.
Always learning. Anything else to add, guys? All right, we'll take those notes. All right, so for our last question, because we're almost out of time here, this has been so fun. Mike, I'll stay with you here. Do you have any advice to MSPs as we all sort of enter this work from anywhere phase? Any best practices that you think MSPs should be following?
Yeah, so we actually have a sales deck that we give to our partners, that we help them sell, because that's one of the biggest difficulties that they have. And we have it's simple. It's 5 steps. I have it pulled up right here. And happy to give this to anybody that's on the video today. But first step, establish what you want to protect the most. So talking to your customers and finding out what is the information that you care about the most. That could be PHI for a healthcare provider. It could be a car dealership wants to protect their customer financial information or anything like that. But finding out what the most important information is the first step. Once you have that, you build concentric rings of security around that. We talked about a multi-layered approach. So once you have that done, you have to know if you have a problem. So we've seen cases where a bad actor has been sitting on a network waiting to get the right information for months. We've seen it as far out as 18 months, that they just sit on the network and they wait. And if you're not monitoring your network, you don't know that you even have a problem. Most people will say, I never thought that I would be a target. And the fact is that the way that attacks happen these days, everybody's a target. So starting to understand if you have a problem before you decide that you don't have a problem. Then number 4 is taking response time down, which is the difference between a problem going public or not. So having not only the plan in place to block attacks, but if or when an attack happens, how do you remediate it quickly? How do you prevent things from getting public and tarnishing the brand? And then finally, I talked about this earlier, pick a framework. Pick a framework that you want to stick to, develop a plan to get there. So those are my 5 best practices. I see a lot of our partners actually take that single slide from the sales deck and have it as a leave behind or laminated or whatever. So happy to provide that for anyone that's on the call here today.
Mike, do a lot of MSPs know, in your experience, working at SKOUT, how to have that conversation of what's important data? Because I bet you a lot of business owners don't even, not that they don't know, but they kind of gloss over all of the actual data that they have, and so is there like a checklist that MSPs go through? I'm assuming we've got everyone has their own different way that they have that conversation.
Yeah, so we have a few of those based on industry of what we think the most important data might be. But it's also good to understand, first of all, what's your most important data, but then how does it travel across the network? Where is it stored? Who has access to it? People don't realize how accessible this information is. I heard a story of a partner of ours who deals with car dealerships. He told them most important information is social security numbers, employment information for their customers. They said that the data resides in a locked server room. Who has access to it? Well, the salespeople have access to it. And you mean even this salesperson over here that has their computer unlocked over there talking to a customer. So they don't understand that even though that data is stored somewhere, that it's traveling the network, people have access to it. So really digging in deep, and people will realize that that they do have a security problem.
Yeah, and a lot of MSPs are sometimes intimidated with sales. It's just asking questions and having a conversation, right? Yeah. And just getting the customer, honestly, the customer will tell you the answer as they have the conversation, and that's how you get them to realize they have a problem, right? Yeah. I mean, they probably don't, like, because when they're having the conversation, they're like, I don't have a problem, I'm fine. Yeah. All is good.
And then we'll see people still go into a sales pitch trying to solve a problem that the customer doesn't think they have. But yeah, it's 80% listening, 20% talking.
That's it.
Indeed.
Let me just follow up on there as well, Dasha. There's a bit of a question as to for me, I mean, the guys have said it all there, really, right? And Mike has spent several years working in that kind of helping people to be educated around, and having visibility of their own infrastructure and their own situation, right? Which I think is awesome. But I think it probably comes back to that choosing the right partnerships, right? Choose your partnerships wisely. You won't. Not many MSPs will be able to do it all themselves, for sure, for many different reasons. So you need to have good vendors around you. You need to have good partnerships around you. You need to be able to offer the very best technology that you possibly can to your customers, no matter what size organization they are, right? So pick those partnerships, but then utilize them and use them wisely and push them and challenge them and engage with them, right? And then you'll get the very best that you can out of the vendors and out of those partnerships for you to then be able to give the very best that you can to your customers. So I think that's kind of my advice. That's how we maximize the opportunity. That's how we make sure that we do the very best that we can.
Yeah, Jason, I just want to add one thing there. I heard you say the word partner and partnership. I've been working with MSPs for over 10 years now, and when you hear them talk about, when you hear MSPs talk about their partners, they talk about this company's a vendor, this company's a partner, and they're very specific terms for MSPs. And it's important when you're in security to find a partner and find somebody that you trust, find somebody that's going to be there for you. There is no 911 for cybersecurity. We say that a lot. There's not a 911 for cybersecurity. You need to trust your MSP and their partnerships to serve as your 911 if you're a small or medium business.
Yeah, totally. And it's a journey, right? And it's a journey that we're all on together. So let's make it a long and successful and fruitful journey for all.
I don't even know how to, so many words of wisdom. I'm good. Like, I was just going to say, practice what you preach, but I'm still trying to take my notes. Phishing, ransomware compliance, 98% have threats. I'm with it. So I'm going to leave it with them too. They're on it. It's all about a partnership. I agree with them wholeheartedly. Let's do this together and let's protect our customers.
Love that. And Neal, you can share your notes later for the rest of us to think it all in. So unfortunately, that is all we've had time for today. The 40 minutes have gone really quick and we've had a great conversation. So thank you, Mike, Jason, Neal, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it was awesome. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much to all of our viewers for tuning in and for your participation today. Remember that you can watch all of our LinkedIn shows from the Barracuda LinkedIn page. Check out our LinkedIn Lives. And thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, have a safe journey.